What becomes more valuable than money when the lights stay off? A blackout is not darkness, it is the collapse of certainty. The refrigerator warms, the taps slow, the phone becomes a fading torch. In the first hour, inconvenience dominates. In the first night, injury starts to matter. By day 2, small medical gaps become permanent problems. Most first aid kits are built for comfort. A blackout demands function. Bleeding control, infection control, pain control, and the quiet management of dehydration, burns, and panic. Medical supply failure is rarely dramatic. It is often a slow leak in the background, a cut that stays wet, a blister that turns hot, a fever that arrives after the pharmacy shutters. The first essential supply is gloves. Not one pair, a stack. Nitrile, non-latex, sealed. In a blackout, cleanliness becomes a finite resource. Hands become vectors. Blood becomes risk. One glove is a barrier between help and infection. Without gloves, care turns into exposure, and exposure becomes a chain, not an event. The second supply is wound irrigation. Sterile saline is ideal, clean water in a pinch, a syringe that can push pressure through grit. Most infections start because dirt stays inside. Gauze covers it, tape seals it, then heat builds underneath. Irrigation is not glamorous, it is prevention with a hard edge. The third supply is sterile gauze and absorbent pads, not decorative bandages, real capacity. Pads that can drink blood, not merely hide it. In a blackout, the ambulance may not arrive. Minutes stretch into hours. Gauze becomes time. Time is the most expensive medical tool. Gauze buys it silently. The fourth supply is a tourniquet, a proper one, designed for limbs, with a windlass that locks. This is not for minor wounds. This is for the moment that changes a household, a slip with a blade, a shattered bottle, a vehicle collision in a dark junction. Massive bleeding is a maths problem. Blood volume falls, pulse rises, judgment fades, then the body quits the conversation. The fifth supply is a pressure bandage, elastic, tight enough to hold force, simple enough to apply with shaking hands. Not every bleed needs a tourniquet. Many need sustained pressure that does not tire. This is that pressure stored in fabric. And this is where most kits fail. They assume calm hands and bright rooms. They assume instructions can be read. They assume mistakes can be corrected. Because the next items are not about treating wounds, they are about treating the environment itself. Heat, contamination, and the slow, ugly drift into illness when the grid stays silent. When power disappears, the environment becomes a medical factor. The sixth essential supply is oral rehydration salts, not sports drinks, not sugar water. Dehydration hides inside heat, stress, and illness. Diarrhea, fever, vomiting, each strips fluid faster than thirst can warn. Electrolyte imbalance weakens muscles, clouds judgment, slows recovery. Rehydration salts correct chemistry, not comfort. In prolonged blackouts, dehydration hospitalizes more people than trauma.
The seventh supply is broad-spectrum antiseptic. Not fragrance, not cosmetic wipes, true microbial control. Povidone iodine, chlorhexidine, alcohol where appropriate. Infections flourish when water is scarce and surfaces are reused. Antiseptic interrupts that growth quietly. It is easier to prevent infection than to fight it without antibiotics. The 8th supply is basic pain management. Pain is not just suffering, it is interference. Pain disrupts sleep. Sleep disrupts immunity. Immunity disrupts healing. Paracetamol, ibuprofen, used correctly, stored dry. Reducing pain preserves function. Function preserves decision-making. The 9th supply is thermometry. Fever is information. Hypothermia is information. Without power, intuition replaces data. That is dangerous. A thermometer reveals infection early. It confirms decline before collapse becomes visible. Medical awareness begins with measurement. The 10th supply is medical lighting. Darkness turns care into guesswork. Headlamps free hands. Red modes preserve night vision. Battery efficiency matters more than brightness. Most injuries occur during movement, not rest. Most treatment happens after sunset. Light restores precision when the grid cannot. Together, these supplies form a system, not a kit, a capability. Gloves prevent infection transfer. Irrigation removes contamination. Gauze and pressure stop bleeding. Tourniquets stop catastrophe. Hydration, antiseptic, pain control, temperature awareness, and light prevent decline. None of these items are rare. What is rare is understanding how quickly absence compounds. A blackout does not remove medicine instantly. It removes access, timing, and correction. Pharmacies close. Deliveries stop. Advice disappears behind dead screens. Minor injuries become major because delays stretch. Infections worsen because observation fails. The body deteriorates quietly when support systems vanish. These supplies matter because they buy something precious: time. Time to heal. Time to observe. Time to decide correctly instead of urgently. Medical preparedness is not about saving lives dramatically. It is about preventing small problems from becoming irreversible ones. When the lights go out, medicine becomes local again. And the most valuable supplies are the ones already within reach. That is what becomes more valuable than money when the blackout does not end.